Okay, so today I'm going to go through how to edit this photo, this BMW i8 in front of this hotel that is in Santa Monica, California. I was just down there. I recently took this photo, so I also made a video of going to track down just cars there. So you'll have to check up the rest of the channel to see if that's up. Should be up soon after this goes live. But yeah, so I'm basically going to take you through what I usually do when I go into Lightroom and I do all my photos and do all the editing. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to go down here to lens corrections, enable profile corrections, and also remove chromatic aberrations. So that looks pretty good. I'm not going to constrain the crop because I'm probably not going to crop it. It's looking pretty good as is. So I'm going to scroll back up. And then usually first things I'll generally play with, oops, that shouldn't be moved. I'll play with the contrast and tone and exposures. You'll notice I might I don't know if it'll come up in the video, but I do adjust my brightness because I need to make sure it looks good on my screen on my phone and stuff once it goes onto Instagram or onto my website, which I will link right now. So I'm going to start just by kind of playing it up just a little bit. You know, I usually will put it up to between 12 and 24 right off the start, if I can get it there. Right, and then I'll usually play with the contrast. I usually, strangely enough, I'll actually put the contrast down in this just because this is pretty, the contrast from this really light upper portion to this lower third over here is really rather drastic, so I'm going to kind of leave it there. I'm not going to do too much with the highlights. I might actually bump them up just a little bit, just a tad. Go ahead and enter a value here. I'm going to enter like 4. Let's see what else here. Shadows, I'm probably not going to touch anything. I'm going to definitely play with the whites here. And so what I do here is I press the Alt key, and then I can slide the bar up and down. It'll show what areas of the whites are being very affected. So I kind of want to look to see where it's being hit. And then with darks, I usually go just till there's like a little bit of black. Okay, that's good. And then, let's see, and then clarity, I'll usually bump the clarity up to like about 10. Right off the start. Oopsie, or 5's good, I guess. Go to about 9. That looks alright. Alright, and then first thing I generally will do is I will mask the car using the adjustment brush tool, or you can press K on the keyboard. And I will mask the car by pressing O after I lay down the first piece. That way I can see what I'm masking and what has been affected while using the brush. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video here, and I'll kind of play it in fast motion so you can see what I'm doing. Really quick though, I do use the Shift key to draw straight lines with this tool. I've noticed that really helps when it comes to making sure you get a nice fine line across some of the stuff. But anyway, I'll get this done and I'll be right back. Alright, so now that that's masked, I'm going to hit O again real quick, and then so that way I can see the car. And then generally with these, I'll play with the clarity, and just with the highlights, some of the shadows, I might bring them up just a little bit to kind of see the base. Maybe not so much, maybe like 1. I'll enter it in here, I'll do like 1 or 2 probably. I don't want to go too much. That looks good. And then highlights, oopsie, yeah, highlights. I like to kind of play around with those just a little bit. Let's see. Alright, that looks pretty good for now. I'll come back to it probably a little bit later. Another thing that I did notice is there's a couple spots here. I already adjusted one of these earlier. Right up in here, there's some spots I want to remove. So I'm going to remove, one thing that caught my eye was this guy right here. This light, I just want to make sure that that's not there. I want to keep it really clean lines in the background, so that's the plan here. Let the computer process that. And then I'm just going to change it with a like color of the same background. Just that way it kind of flows together. So let's see, how's that look? So I was using the cloning tool. I'm going to adjust it real quick. I don't like how that looks. I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. I'll just hit radio filter, that way it gets rid of whatever I'm trying to see. Oopsie, that was a little too much, actually. And I'll just bring it up a couple clicks. Sweet, so now that that one's done, another spot I saw was right down here. I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger. And these I don't generally worry about. But for this shot, I always want to kind of keep it clean. There's a couple little marks here that I want to get rid of. Right. Okay, now that looks pretty good. Thinking. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, now the next part I'm going to pay attention to is in the background, the building itself. It's a little too washed out. I kind of want to have it a little bit more defined since everything else is very defined in this photo. Just with how the building is very defined, it's in focus, so I definitely want to make sure I can capture that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask it, and I'll go through with the brush tool, I'll mask it, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so now that that is masked, I'm going to, first of all, the first thing I thought I should do is adjust with the highlights, bring it down, bring up some contrast just a little bit, maybe bump in a little bit of clarity, just to really accentuate those lines and stuff like that. Let's see, I might drop the highlights just a little bit more. That looks good. I'm not going to really do many of the graduated filters up here, just because they also would wash out the building, and I'm liking the way it's looking right now, actually, because it kind of goes off into space as is. Another thing I'm going to adjust is this wall right here, the glass, as well as this shrub, because this shrub, the saturation on it just isn't there. So actually, here's one thing I'll actually do first. I'm going to play with the vibrance and saturations. And probably pop just the vibrance up that's quite a bit. I'm actually going to go to about 15, or thereabouts, oops, about 15. 15's about right. And then actually I'll go down to the, where is it? Ah, here we go. Saturations and stuff. I'm going to bring up the green. Bring up to about 12. The only thing is I just don't want it to be too far off of what this is right here, because this is really green, vibrant. Kind of almost neon color. So then the next part I'm going to do is play with the saturation and everything and the coloring on this wall. But first of all, I'm actually going to do the same thing as I just did. Oopsie. Do the same thing. And with the aqua, because that's about the right color. Really bump up the saturation and the blues. Actually, no, I'm not, because that really plays with the color here on the car. I'm going to do what I thought first. Okay, so we'll go to the masking tool with the adjustment brush. And so we're just going to lay down a mask here using the shift key as a helper. Let's make sure we get this nice and tight up here. Zooming in. I'm using the space bar to bring myself in a lot closer here as well. For any of you looking for some keyboard tricks. I also have a touch screen, so I can kind of squeeze and pull it around a little bit, I guess. And then holding on the space bar, I'm able to, and dragging, I'm able to drag the photo about. So I'm using the shift key again just to get the straight lines. I'm just kind of going in short portions and kind of just going around the outside of the car. I'm just going to make sure I get just this part of it. Drop the space out there. Nice fresh line. I'm not going to really play with the bush too much there, just because it's, I'm already liking the way it's looking. I might put in a little bit of clarity there, but that'd be about it at that point. So let's see. I know a lot of people use the tools for different things. I kind of use them in an unorthodox way, I suppose people might say, rather. Zoom in back in. Like I said, if any of you guys had any suggestions on how I'm doing this, please feel free to comment if anyone even watches it. I just figured I may as well kind of show what I do, because people do ask what I edit on when I do my photos. So this is generally the course of action when it comes to me. All right, we'll zoom back out. Hit O. I'm gonna probably bump it with the clarity. really bring up the saturation. And then I might actually hit the temp a little bit and kind of pull it towards the blues. Just to really, that's a little much. It's kind of extreme. I'm going to go with like negative 17-ish. That looks good. Okay, and then the next part I'm going to go back and do the the larger hedge here. I guess I shouldn't say it's really a bush, it's kind of a hedge. Okay, so using the shift key again. I'm not a master at this, but it's definitely helped me. Always willing to learn, but I've definitely noticed though that doing more photos, I definitely have gotten a lot better with how to do some of these actions on the keyboard and stuff. All right, then one thing I'm going to do along here is kind of set a buffer a little bit. So I'm going to hold down shift and then scroll out or scroll up with the mouse. I've noticed that you can see it makes there to be a larger feather on the filter. So I'm just going to kind of have it so the feather kind of goes a little bit out over the edge a little bit to kind of cover up that little zone. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing as I did over there. Bump this up a little bit. And I'm going to play with the tint a little bit because it's kind of got some green in it, so I'm going to pull it that way. It's looking pretty good. And I'm going to hit it maybe with a little bit of clarity, but not too much. No, I'm not going to do that. See, dropping the highlights, maybe a tad looks alright. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so now the next part I'm going to hit on is the graduated filters. So this will bring, if you drag it down, I'll show you right here. On the top you can see there's 3 lines. If you press O, you can see the amount. You can drag it, and it'll show you kind of how much is there. In my case here, I'm actually going to go from the bottom, so I'll delete that one. I'm going to go from the bottom up along this way. And one thing I'm going to worry about is this line right here, how this kind of goes from dark to light. I don't want it to change too much. I just want to kind of touch on this area down in here with the ground and stuff like that. Add some ground effect. So you can see it's pretty soft right there, so I'm going to hit the clarity to kind of really bring it up. I'm liking the way that's looking, actually. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I might go back now, and I'm going to kind of look at the building. It's looking a little washed out still. I might go back and touch on that just a bit here. Oopsie, there it goes. Let's see. I'm going to hit with the contrast right about there. Perhaps the highlights. Maybe a little bit more clarity, actually, instead of that. Keep the highlights up right about there. So that's looking just about right for me. This is a pretty vivid picture in this case. And then one last thing I might touch on is I might do a light mask of clarity over the windows just to kind of really bring up how the windows reflect the light, especially in this photo, because you can see the tinting on it is really pretty. So actually, no, I like how that looks. But yeah, so now the last thing I'd really do is kind of just check to make sure I didn't miss anything, make sure there isn't anything that kind of stands out. Oop, there's something. I'm going to knock this guy out. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to hit these guys and get rid of those as best I can. Keep the lines straight, keep everything pretty smooth in the background, no fuss. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, well, actually one last thing. I was going to hit this just a little bit with a filter. So I'm going to throw the feather up really big because I don't want it to be too serious here. Let's see. Kind of just along the middle portion of that, and then hit with a bit of clarity, maybe a bit of contrast, maybe not with the contrast actually. Okay, let's do that. All right, that's looking like it for me. Anyway, so if you have any other statements or anything, please feel free to comment. I'll probably make more of these. This was one that I just liked. This I8 was in a really good spot. I hope I didn't mess it up in anyone's opinion with my editing. Like I said, this is just how I do it. I encourage you to go out and try it. Lightroom's a great application. I did get Illustrator, but I usually use this. But yeah, so feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and go check us out on Instagram. I'll link, once again, all over the screen, at UpperWestExotics, and this should be up by then. So thank you. Anyway, take care.